Matt, is there anything kind of high level that you want to start off with, just in terms of general development, what's rolling out? Maybe maybe talk about the land sale lottery. Maybe we wait just a little bit for that, but your call. Just some of the high level things you think we ought to discuss.
Yeah, sure. I mean, from a development perspective, cryptomancers work on the guild wars, guild tournaments, brawls, whatever we're calling them, is coming along really well. So, we're looking forward to that. Firmly next year is kind of the likely release date for that. I think that'll be a pretty good new, whole thing for guilds and player cooperation and stuff like that. From the land perspective, I mean, obviously there's the land sales that are still going on, but then, behind the scenes, Aggroed and I and the lore team and Nate, we're starting to do a lot of work on getting the map set up and created, with all the different terrain types, splitting it out into regions, and all that stuff. Chris Roberts has been doing a fantastic job of doing the map creation and splitting everything out and doing all that. So that's getting really exciting to start seeing that come together. And hopefully we'll be able to start showing that to you guys pretty soon. And then, from the actual land pre-sale perspective, I'm sure all of you here know that, everything's going to be done in a lottery fashion for the second time around, so we don't have any issues with site crashing or people trying to, all rushing to get in at like the split second that the sale goes live. So everyone, there's a little over a week, about 8 days left to enter the lottery. And then it'll just pick randomly from everyone who's entered until it fills out all of the land that's available. So it should be hopefully much more fair and a better experience for everybody, when the land lottery takes place in 8 days.
Any updates on mobile that you would want to share at this point?
Yeah, we submitted the Android app to the Google Play Store for review. So we're waiting. They have all the COVID, everything's taking longer for whatever reason than normal. But hopefully we'll hear back about the review soon, and then hopefully we'll have an Android app in the store available. If not, we may have to make some updates or whatever and resubmit. So we'll see how that goes. And then we've started, working on the iOS version also over the past week. So it's been a long time, but we're making progress there.
Any thoughts on like trying to level set expectations for the iOS app? Is that going to be 2 days later and we submit? Is that 2 months or 2 years later? Like what's the kind of scope of work before it can be submitted?
I would hope we submit before the end of the year type of thing. So like a month or two at the most. Because, other than the iOS specific stuff like payments, everything else should be ready to go. But then, as far as actually getting approval, who knows? We have to see what they say, and their review process can be pretty arbitrary. Kind of depends on who you get, whatever. So, I can't guarantee when it'll actually be available in the iOS stores, but I'm hoping, within the next month or two, we'll have it ready to submit.
All right. I guess from my perspective, in terms of beyond the design stuff, I'm simultaneously working on 5 different partnerships. Some of them are like final stages of getting signed and released. Some have been signed, but we haven't gotten like PR stuff sort of co-approved and put together. But I have no less than 5 of these, and they're in various stages. I would think that every single one of them is like a crypto name that you would recognize. And the goal is to work with their audience, accept their token for value, and then kind of share on social media that we're working together. In some cases, they're building NFT exchange platforms. So just like you could send your regular crypto to an exchange to trade it, like a Binance or a Bittrex, some of these guys are starting to make more generic NFT trading platforms on top of these other blockchain ecosystems. And I'm exploring with a couple of the companies, not all of them, how could we do it there? So kind of like we do ERC 721s on Ethereum now, we're looking to do that on other chains and other places. But of course, kind of going forward, we're really cautious about spending dev time and dev dollars doing that in places where gas fees won't be an issue. So the goal is to sort of get access to new players, new communities, new capital markets for the cards, and start building partnerships. At least one of these is seems very likely at this point to come with like some money for tournaments. So I don't know that that's going to be a super ongoing thing, but I think that there's some cash available for that. Some of them, we do affiliate rewards with partners. Some of them want to put it back into tournaments so that there's like a weekly tournament that celebrates that partnership or that business. So, for me, it's really important. The two dates that I keep in my head are November 28th and December 19th, because those are the next two land sales. And so my goal is to try to get as much attention on this project before those things happen. So I'm hopeful that I don't think I can get all 5 done by the end of next week, but I'm hopeful that a couple of these will actually be ready to announce, and it'll go out to their audience, and we'll share it across social media. And it's still they're big for crypto. They got 50 to 100,000 Twitter followers and kind of that range. So I think these things have been relatively successful in the past, helping us to get new players, find people that are familiar with NFTs, and just generally, I'm excited for some of these new partnerships to come in and think through what else can we do to scale this. One of those options that I keep poking around with is it's a concept that I'm trying to figure out, but I'm calling it initially an authority token. And if you own the authority token, you could suddenly have all these Splinterlands cards delegated to you. So other companies that might want to build community here could go purchase a bunch of decks, have a authority token associated with those, and then let players from their community play and earn. They'd still maintain the actual ownership as a company, but now they could engage their player base. And by doing this, you can start creating all these local events. Our guild played another guild and we won. Our player won this tournament. Our player participated and they bought the first castle in the land expansion. Whatever. All the various things that happen now happen as part of a community that you can then share the story about. So these are some of the concepts that I'm exploring, trying to figure out how do we build partnerships with other businesses in the space? How do we get access to capital markets? How do we get access to new players? How do we build new functionality into the game to support more of that happening? Those are all some of the discussions that I've been having and trying to figure out. And at least some of that should be going live here in the next couple of weeks, just as these partnerships kind of kick into place. So that to me, I think is my big one. I told one of the groups, I'm seeing Matt Clark's comment, if no aspiring marketplace is going to thumb their nose at our volume. And I showed them, we had like a nice day of sales and it was like 12,000 sales or something. And I'm like, go look at the number of cards that we're selling. Why don't you compare that to the number of total NFT transactions on all of Ethereum today? And let me know what you think about how much we're doing. And the guys from a pretty big project here were pretty damn impressed with just how active the traders in our community are. And, you know, so I'll leave it at that. I think that I don't know. I think some of these developments are cool. Definitely don't want to overhype them until they're real and we see what kind of traction do we get. I'm going to be more cautious about that. But I'm a continuously optimistic human, and I look at these things and I am looking forward to them and looking forward to new faces from new communities and new folks around here. Great value of the project is its community. Is that what this means? Well, in some case, it's the community. In some case, it's access to how much capital is built within that community. In some cases, it's like a whole new place to exchange cards in some feeless experience that commingles our cards with other games and assets. So, one of the things that I think we need to do is figure out, or if you have somebody that plays something like Axie, that would be a good target audience for us, for somebody that we would want to purchase land here. So then you start asking, well, how do we get Axie players to see Splinterlands, and how do we make it so that Splinterlands players learn more about Axie? And if we commingle our cards on the same market, I think it's more likely that we can find that and make that happen and grow as a result. So yes, it's community, but all of these marketplaces end up being kind of like billboards for us too, as all these additional people bring their communities to a common place to have all the trading happen. When the lands go out, we go to Shark Tank. Shark Tank has been requested a couple times. I have an application for it somewhere. It's never been high enough on the list to dedicate to that. Do you have any numbers on the Gal and Brave partnership? How many players did they attract to the game? How many did buy a spell book? Matt, anything you want to kind of share about like new player funnel in general, and maybe specific to Gala or Brave if you're able to?
Yeah, well, I mean, Gala was very, very small. I mean, we got a few players who have put a good amount of like Gala token into the game, so that's good. Brave is a lot smaller than we would have hoped so far, but I think there's still a lot of opportunity there. I mean, right now, all they've been really running is the ads for us, which is nice. So there's been, roughly like 500 people who have signed up from Brave ads specifically, and then we've been seeing like 10 to 15% of signups. Will go on to purchase the spell book, which is, in traditional gaming, there's like maybe 1 to 2% of players are purchasers, and here we're looking at like 10 to 15%. So it's like, hugely different than traditional games, which I think just, comes back to the fact that, blockchain-based games are very different from traditional games, and players see a lot more value in spending some money in order to be able to earn from play. Another one of the bigger ones we did recently was Electronium. I don't have like specific numbers because we didn't like have a referral code specifically for them. But just judging from the number of players that have used the Electronium currency to make purchases, there's been some really good uptake from that one. So I think, as aggroed said, if we just keep adding these communities, one at a time here and there, and it like slowly snowballs as like more and more people from those, some will be small, some will be larger. But from a percentage basis, as far as like our total user base, they add a good amount of people. Wombat's been another one that's still going strong and still getting a good amount of referrals, specifically to the mobile web app. But yeah, so we just keep adding these, and they keep like slowly but surely growing the player base. And that's definitely the most effective way we've seen to new like real players that are into this and want to add value to the whole ecosystem.
And it's really it's a really nice positive feedback loop. It's almost like each one of these partnerships hits another community with a little bit of FOMO to join the Splinterlands community. You know, even if Brave itself didn't end up getting nearly as many players as I thought, I'm getting contacted by people with communities because they saw the Brave stuff. And so, you know, I like Matt, I agree that there's some good conversations and some planning that we should go back onto the drawing board with Brave and see if we can't figure out how to get more traction from that partnership, because there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But I just want to emphasize that in the conversations that I have with these new communities to go onboard whole new chunks of people, you know, each one is referencing previous partnerships, and not entirely, but I would say probably 3 of the 5 are coming to us now, not us going to them saying you should do this, but 3 of the 5 are coming to us being like, we heard about how you did this with them and we want in too. So each one of these I think will bring in more. So I don't know, just steady snowball, and I think we just keep growing this thing.
Yeah, so I also wanted to talk about like what you were saying earlier about kind of new types of partnerships that we're doing. So in the past, the partnerships were just simply, you know, you promote us, we promote you, and, you know, we get new players in. And we started taking a different approach, which I think is really neat and exciting, which is that instead of just, you know, the partner or the community promotes Splinterlands to their player base or their user base, it's actually a more involved integration where the community or the group that has the community, the brand, will actually buy Splinterlands assets. So they might buy a region of land, or they might buy, you know, 10,000 booster packs or whatever it is. And they own those assets in their account. And then they use that to further incentivize their community to get into Splinterlands. So if it's a project that has their own token, they could say, you know, hey, if you have, you know, 1 million of our token or however much they want, you know, one of the perks that you get is you get delegated a max level deck in Splinterlands, right? And you can be in our max level guild, and you can, you know, maybe get entries to our special tournaments and things like that. So it's a lot more in depth and involved than just, you know, promote it to their user base. It's actually like giving value to their token or their assets, because they can, you know, they have these assets in Splinterlands that they can offer to their community who has their token and things. So, and a lot of groups are looking for giving more value to their token, and a lot of them who have done like ICOs or whatever the new 3-letter term is now, you know, they have some money for marketing, and this is a good way they can come in and purchase Splinterlands assets as a marketing spend, you know, to promote people to buy and hold their tokens. So I think that's a pretty neat and innovative just method of marketing the game and getting new players, I think. And the credit really goes to Aggroed on that, and that's what he's been working on. So hopefully in the near future, we'll see the first of those start to pop up, which for our existing players, I mean, means more players who are coming in with like high level delegated decks, you know, with guilds that are competitive, and specifically more tournaments with bigger prizes. It just gives more rewards available to everybody. So we're really looking forward to that, and, you know, seeing how we can grow that.
Yep. Should be fun. I mean, just and I want to clarify that, you know, we're not like minting cards out of the blue. We would be taking Untamed packs that they purchase. We would be making decks, and then we would be delegating those decks. But part of that I think is so cool is, like, you know, typically if I want to go host a marketing event, I host an event. It costs me, you know, $100,000, and then that event closes down and it's gone. So I better have captured something out of that, or else all that money is spent and lost. And here, it's kind of weird. This is what can happen with NFTs and gaming and communities. You purchase the NFTs and then you delegate them to players and they play for a while. In worst case scenario, the thing doesn't go off like you thought. And just like a player that might get upset with the game, you close down this delegating authority token thing and you sell off the cards and you go back to whatever else it was that you were doing. So the theoretical net spend goes from $100,000 spent to neutral, maybe a small loss if the markets go bad, maybe a gain if the markets go up, but it's not $100,000 loss like it is in the original version of this, where you just pay for an event and the event closes, and if it was a flop, you're just out 100,000. So I'm not seeing a lot of questions in the audience here. So if you guys have AMA style stuff, we can do that.
Everyone knows everything at this point.
Yeah, it's actually been really quiet in Discord.
Yeah, and one thing what might be cool to mention is what we were talking about for the resources in the land and how those can be traded.
Yeah, if you want to bring it up, I think it's amazing. This is one of Matt's. Matt is filled with brilliant ideas, and I think this is one of the coolest. But I'm going to say that, and I'm going to be like, look, I'm not going to overhype it. The idea will just be normal. Don't expect high things. But Matt, I think this thing is freaking cool. Why don't you go ahead and explain it?
Yeah, so as you guys know, in the land expansion, there's going to be a large number of resources. So it's not just going to be there's dark energy crystals and credits. There's going to be tons of fungible tokens, like grain, wood, ore, stone. Then there's going to be, tokens for each, magical resources for each splinter, like spark stone and I don't know, the helio stones or something. I don't even remember what they're all called. So there's going to be, 10 to 20 new tokens that represent these resources. A big part of it is going to be, you might be producing a lot of grain, but you're going to need other things than just grain to upgrade your buildings and craft cards and do all the things you need to do. And we don't want it to be a situation where you have to go take that grain, send it to Hive engine, trade it for Hive or, swap.hive, and then trade the swap.hive for another token. You'll certainly be able to do all of that. And, God forbid we did that on Ethereum and you had to pay all these fees for all that stuff. So the goal was to come up with a good way for you to just go from grain to Sparkstone or whatever within the game without fees and quickly and easily, or at least very small fees. So what we're thinking is that there'd be sort of an in-game Uniswap type system for all of the resources. So players can put up, whatever resources they want. You have a lot of grain, put up grain, and dark energy crystals would be the kind of base token. You put up grain and an equal amount of dark energy crystals, just like you would if you entered a Uniswap pool. But this would all be in the game based on the Hive blockchain, so just a 3-second feeless transaction to put that up. And then there'd be these liquidity pools against dark energy crystals for all of the different resource tokens in the game. And so then anytime if you have a bunch of grain, you can just be like, hey, I want to trade this grain for Sparkstone. You go into the market area, you see the rate, and you just do a transaction, you send in your grain, and you get the Sparkstone out in one atomic transaction. And then, there would be a small amount of fees like there is in Uniswap, and that would go to the liquidity providers. So people who are putting up their grain with dark energy crystals or putting up their Sparkstone with dark energy crystals, they'll earn a little bit from the transactions. And that way it'll be this very liquid, easy, totally player controlled market to go between any of the different resources in the land expansion. And then we're talking about also having, kind of competitions between regions for putting up liquidity. So, all the players that are, part of each region can add liquidity to these markets, and then the total, each region will have a total percentage of the liquidity that they've provided, and there'll be maybe some new special rewards that you can earn. So like regions kind of can compete with each other to try to put more liquidity into the pools, and that would be the way. Just like with Uniswap currently, people try to add different incentives for more users to put up liquidity. That would be a way that we incentivize people in the land expansion to put up liquidity. It's but it's more of a collaborative thing with their region to put up as much as possible to get the the special rewards in addition to the trading fees. So like aggroed said, we think that'll be pretty neat to have this whole like in-game player run Uniswap style market for all the different resources tokens that we're adding.
So cool map coming soon, some good trading. I think we're making good progress on really the full design of how this land expansion is going to work. It's most likely that we're going to get the land out first, and maybe the land isn't quite yet productive. I think Matt and I came up with some more concrete thoughts on how like harvesting will work. And we've mentioned in a couple places it's likely that you're going to have summoners and monsters that you'll have to stake. I think we can put that down in the books as not at a maybe anymore, but that's how that will work. That you're that how productive how productive your lands are going to be completely dependent on the monsters that you're staking, the level of the building, kind of gear that you have in there, kind of your core piece of equipment that's part of it. But the summoners and monsters that you're staking will have an impact on that as well. So that's been kind of this maybe, or we don't quite know how that's going to work, but I think Matt and I are getting way more into consensus on, you'll have a building, there'll be spots for your summoners, your monsters, your gear, what the core building size could impact, how many of those things are allowed in there. And, each building will have like one key piece to it that all the other things are kind of impacting and affecting. So, yeah, if you see some monsters or some summoners and you're like, hey, that looks like a really good deal, and they're kind of crappy monsters for fighting, but maybe they're going to be a great little crafter or sparkstone miner. So just some of those really low quality, terrible cards for fighting might end up being pretty desirable as like the cheapest dude that you could go put into a farm.
Yeah, there's a couple questions. If you want to, I can get to those, or you can read them.
If you own land, can you just sit on it and do nothing with it, or will there be a tax or maintenance cost that will force you to produce from the land, buildings, or sell it? So all land is owned and being productive to help everyone.
I don't think we're planning on, like, if you just have land, you can certainly just sit on it. You won't have any anything that you would owe or any. It'd be hard to make that work anyway. What you would be giving up is opportunity costs, right? Because you could be using the land to create resources or items or spells or whatever values. So if you're just sitting on the land, there's an opportunity cost, but there's no like direct cost planned for if you don't use the land. There'll also be opportunities to rent it out. So if you don't want to use it or you don't care about doing any of this stuff, same with the cards in the game right now, you'll rent them out to someone who does, and then you can get a little value out of it that way.
Yeah,
so question. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm not planning on foreclosing anybody.
Yeah.
That's not the spirit of this. The one, for the player-owned stuff, you guys are going to own it, and there'll be ways that you can like voluntarily decide to tear down a building or change what's on it. But there's really not going to be anything where, like, you bought this land, you built this thing, and some whale comes in and squashes your private land. The stuff that you're buying in this land pre-sale really is like not meant to be destroyed or fought over in that way. But, as we build the map has game controlled regions, and those game controlled regions can contain things like boss fights or different kind of competitions between individual players or guilds. And there you might build something that has a good chance of being destroyed. But we have to make sure that the risk of what you spend to build something there is worth the cost to the players, that there's some unique thing that you need to get to the next guild boss or something, so that people are incentivized. So I want to say that I think there will be places where stuff gets destroyed. That's pretty fun in these kinds of games. But it's not going to be, that's going to happen. And if it does happen, that's going to happen in like or the game controlled land. And it specifically will not happen in like your castle or your keep, where like you and your team and your region have put all these resources in, and then some whale comes along and just burns it to the ground. That is not the style that we're envisioning.
Yeah, there was a question before that also from Madgall, who said, is the next edition of cards planned to have lower burning rates than Untamed and Dice? So I'll say I haven't started looking at burning rates or anything for the next edition of cards, but in general, I'm pretty happy with what the rates are for Untamed. So I would, off the top of my head, plan to keep it like that, unless there's, some big reason, and it would be like an economy reason, like if we're seeing dark energy crystals have been pretty stable at around where we expect the price to be. So that would mean that we wouldn't make too many changes to economy things like lowering burning rates. But we'll see what happens when the next card edition is ready.
Is there?
You want me to keep reading questions?
I'm going through trying to. We bounced around a little, so now I'm trying to figure out where we're at.
Yeah, well, Neil, I'm at Neil's question from 929. Do you think card staking on lands would be 1-to-1 monsters to plot or many to one? It's probably going to be many to one, but not like 100. There might be each building, and it might vary per building, but you might it'd probably be like one summoner who's like maybe like the foreman type thing. And then based on the building, you might have, say, like 3 monster slots. And maybe as you upgrade the building, you might unlock another one or whatever. So it wouldn't be something where you put 500 individual, like 1 BCX cards, but it'd be something where you put 1 max level card in one of the spots in order to maximize the output, I guess. So it'll encourage, hopefully, combining cards. And then again, like aggroed said, maybe some of the cards you don't use as much in battle, you could put to use in the mines, so to speak.
And I could see that changing, so that when if you have a level 1 building, it's a tiny little patch. There's not a lot to farm. You can't put all these giant monsters on it. But as your farm levels up and the building expands, then the number of gear slots and maybe even the number of monsters that can work the land.
Oh, we might have lost them. The monsters didn't like to hear that they would be put in the mines, so they cut aggroed off. All right, well, I'll keep going until aggroed comes back. I assume, can you guys still hear me? I just want to make sure. Just aggroed? Okay, great. All right, so next questions. Marjanko, when do you think the lands will go online? What is now the roadmap, end of this year, and the pre-sale, and then? Okay, yeah, so we are we're going to try to do this in stages as much as possible, as we've done with things in the past. I just think that's better to like release parts of things, for players rather than waiting a year plus to release everything. So the kind of first phase that we're planning is that we'll release the map. And at that point, players can claim or redeem their claim tokens. So right now in the pre-sale, people are purchasing claim tokens. So as soon as possible in 2021, but hopefully, not later than the first half of the year, we'll release that map so everyone can see, here's the map of Praetoria, and they can say, I'm redeeming my tract claim, and then they'll get their actual tract. They'll see its location on the map, what region it's in, and they'll be able to, and they'll get their plot token NFTs for their 100 plots in the tract. They'll be able to explore those, which reveals what type of land they are, their rarity, their whether they have magical resources or all that stuff. And then they'll be able to start trading plots of land if you want, and you'll get the actual NFT cards. So that'll be like the first step, hopefully in the first half of 2021. And then the next step after that will be where you can actually start making the buildings and harvesting the resources and doing all that stuff. And then a final step, which may or may not be at the same time, will be you actually craft the items and spell cards that you can then use, in the battle system, and the game will be updated to take that into account. So, we're hoping that all of that will be done in 2021. Obviously lots of things can happen, so that's just a plan or an estimate, and we'll try to keep everyone updated, as often as possible how that's going. But for the first part of, redeeming your lands, seeing them on the map, getting your NFTs, we hope we're going to push for as quickly in 2021 as possible for that. The next question, Kazrak, did you already decide whether you'll be able to use staked monsters for combat or not? Yeah, I mean, the idea is if you have monsters working on your land, then you won't be able to use them in battle because they're working on the land. So that's the plan there. And then, it also just hopefully gives the cards more utility, right? So, you're going to want more if you want to play battles and you want cards to work on your land. So it encourages people to get more cards, to get more gold foil cards, to get more older edition cards, and potentially to get cards, that are in favor in battles. Where's the next question? Matt Clark, cards with recurring names like Goblin, Spirit, Naga, etc. Will they all use the same items or work in the same buildings? Or is there some other planned mechanism for grouping them? So one thing we have been talking about and planning to do, which is sort of common in other similar trading card games, is giving cards like groupings. I don't know what the word is, but like, so, at the bottom somewhere for all the Goblin cards, it might say Goblin. And then there might be things that affect, Goblin cards, or where you can use Goblin cards, or there might be like a group of like mechanical cards or Nagas or spirits or dragons or whatever. So there'll be a group or category for each card, which is, if you play Hearthstone or other similar games, Magic, so you'd probably be familiar with, it'll say like there's a card like all humans get +1 to something. So we're going to add a category for cards, or we're planning to, that would be similar for that. Still TBD how exactly that might come into play with the crafting, like maybe Goblin cards get some benefit in certain, land types or something like that. And then also there might be, the new items and spells that you create, there might be a helmet that's only, equipable by dragon and things like that. So that'll, again, hopefully, a goal of this whole thing is to add more depth to the game. And so that's a good way, I think, that we can do that, which has, been successful in other games. Let's see. Gandalf D. You mentioned that certain monsters will be better than others on land types. Dwarf miner in the mountains. I'm presuming if I have an albatross, I can still use it in the mountains, but a dwarf miner will work at, right, okay. So the question is basically, can you use any type of card to to work in a building on any type of land, but it just may not be as effective. And that's roughly the plan that we're going with. So, you know, you can put your fire splinter monster, you know, working on a lake, land type, or a river or something, but their productivity will likely be decreased, you know, significantly. So, you know, it's gonna come down to, you know, people figuring out, and some things might be obvious like that one, but we're hoping that there's a bunch of things that aren't like as obvious for when certain cards are better, you know, working in certain types of buildings or in certain terrains, and it's something that players will sort of have to discover. And then we look forward to seeing, you know, guides and videos, you know, people, you know, giving tips and tricks for like what cards you should use and what scenarios. And we're also hoping to add some things, you know, maybe it's a V2 thing, but you know, where things change over time. So it's not just, okay, these are the best cards that work in this mountain mine, and you just leave them there forever, and that's that. But maybe there's seasons, you know, maybe there's some, you know, weather events or different phases of the moon or whatever it is. So like, if you really want to optimize the production on your land, you kind of need to be more active, and you kind of check in on a regular basis and see what things are going on and what cards you might want to switch out and change up to get the most production possible. So, you know, all that type of stuff makes it, you know, it's, if you want to just leave a bunch of guys there and go away, you can do that. But the people who are more actively managing will have an advantage, is the goal. I think that's all the questions I've seen. Let me know if I missed anyone. Feel free to throw in more questions. And also, you know, obviously, if you have a question and we don't get to it or whatever during the AMA, you know, aggroed and I are pretty available in general, and you know, we'll be back next week for another one.
Do you want to? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hey, you're back. Hello. Okay, well, while he's working on that, Marjanko asked, how much land will you need to play or craft everything? So TBD, I can't give an exact number, but our goal is that you need a lot. And it's not because we want to force people to get a lot of land, but it's more because, you know, we don't want it to be like everyone siloed off doing their own crafting. We want to make the whole thing more collaborative. So, you know, definitely if you own a region, you'll likely be able to kind of craft everything. But even if you own a whole region, like you may not have every type of land. So you may not, you know, you may want to focus more on certain things that are, you know, more suitable to the types of land that you have in your region. And then the idea is working together. So, you know, even if you have one plot, you know, and you might be producing stone, that's great. You maximize your stone production as much as possible. You can use the markets to trade it for whatever other resources you need. And that's sort of your place in the overall supply chain. You might even just have your one plot be, you know, an item factory that you rent out. So people who are getting all the other resources they need, you know, might use your item factory to actually produce their cards. So we're trying to model it a little bit off of a real life system where, you know, you have a business that's one part of this overall kind of supply chain. So you're not doing everything. You're not farming the grain. You're not mining the stone. You're not getting the helio stones. You're not, you know, fighting the monsters and getting the essences, and then also crafting the ends and spells all by yourself. You know, you might have a few things that your land plots are particularly well suited for, and you kind of focus on that. And then you sell those, you know, what you're producing into the market, and just, you know, so people who need those resources to craft the cards can get them from you. So it's more, the idea is it's more of a whole collaborative thing, and not just everyone has their own little siloed production things to make their items and spells by themselves. Hopefully that answered that. Will the resources be finite, meaning if you own a plot and it produces wood, will that run out? So our plan is, I don't believe we're planning to make them finite. I know in real life that would probably be the case, at least not with farms, but with other things. But, obviously this is more of a magical land and things happen a little differently than in real life. And also we don't want it to be a case where people put a bunch of money, into these, into this land, and then they kind of end up being useless after a while. So that's kind of the plan there. Marjanko, what is a lot? Okay, hopefully he gets it. So I can't say a number, but the idea is, and going back to how much land you need to craft everything. I mean, if you have a tract, let's say, you can probably do everything or mostly everything. You may not have all the magical resources you need, but you could decide to do everything probably from the natural resource harvesting, magical resource harvesting, essence harvesting, item and spell crafting, but it's kind of your call if you want to do that or you just want to focus on what your plots are better suited for. So we'll see. We're going to try to make it a like a balance, and different players can decide to do different things that suits them.
Matt, do you want to try to talk a little bit about? So we have 10 minutes left. The two things I think we should talk about remaining here are what are the plans kind of going into the next week? And honestly, I think we should skip next week because it's Thanksgiving here in America, and we should just not do that. So we'll have like a 2-week sprint here before the next one. Do you want to kind of talk us through a bit of what kinds of things we'll be working on in the next 2 weeks, either on the dev side or the marketing side?
I would say it's not much different than our current plans that we've talked about. Obviously, making sure that the land sale next Saturday goes off well. So there'll be some work from my end to do that. Starting to get the third and final land pre-sale ready and up on the site, which will probably be around a week after the lottery will be open a week after the second pre-sale ends. Aggroed's going to continue working on the partnerships that we mentioned. Hopefully we can announce, at least a couple of them before the next AMA in 2 weeks. Cryptomancer's going to keep pounding on the guild brawls, which, we're pretty excited about for many different reasons. Mobile app, working on the iOS version, hopefully getting good news from the Android version. Maybe there's some things that I'm forgetting about, but that's kind of our priorities. And then continuing to design all the land stuff that we're talking about right now, starting to put actual numbers, starting to get the economies going, getting the map set up, and all that type of stuff. Anything else I missed, aggroed?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive. Marketing, we're going to keep working on these partnerships and delivering this. Some of the building might actually include like building contracts to go to some of these third-party markets, and just building the different parts of the game. I think that's all accurate. Just at least to get a time for the next one in here. I think that we'll skip a week from today and 2 weeks a day. Let's just go back to the normal 3 p.m. and just put that. It's already in the calendar, and I don't.
So that'll be Friday, December 4th, 3 p.m. ET. Put that in the chat there. All right, so let me get a couple more questions. Neil's asking, within the context of pursuing your land's advantage, will there be synergies between plots to increase production of things? That's interesting. I would say we haven't really considered that, except for in the case of keeps and castles. We're trying to make that a sort of like a collaborative, again, like kind of governance model based thing where you can kind of choose, how the keeps and castles will benefit the land within the region. Based on players, voting, based on plot ownership or things like that. We're being very careful to make sure the keeps and castles are not any type of situation where the owner of the keeps and castles can like negatively affect anyone, or if they are inactive or whatever, then like everyone in the region track like screwed. So It's more going to be like keeping castle owners just get extra benefits from what everyone else sort of votes and decides, that type of way. So like everyone, the keeps and castles will have more utility, and you'll want them because they get these extra benefits, but it'll won't negatively affect anyone else. So that's kind of the only thing we had talked about so far as like synergies between plots that are in the same tract or region. But it is an interesting idea to have like if you farm next to a mine, maybe that affects it somehow, but I'm not sure we're going to get into that level of detail. I mean, another thing is we have like tons and tons of ideas, right? There's tons and tons of things being thrown out, but obviously, a big and very important part of this is we got to distill things down and cut out, any ideas that are too difficult or like not core to what we need to build, so we can make sure we get a good product out in a reasonable time frame, which is like obviously top priority. So we're kind of taking all the ideas, we're taking the bits and pieces that are most important, and we're kind of starting the process of distilling those down, cutting out things that aren't necessary, which is just typical design process. So we can hopefully get like the best of the ideas incorporated in a way that can be reasonably built and work well. Matt Clark's asking, can we have an endless trample rule set, please? Yes, aggroed has been pushing that forever. I'm currently waiting on Nate to get me the rule set graphic for it, and then it should be pretty easy to implement. I'd like to get a whole bunch of rule sets in, just because I think that adds more interesting changes to the game to keep it interesting for people. So we're just a little like Nate's pretty overbooked with lots of stuff right now. So we're going to try to get those in soon, Endless Trample and some others. Neil's asking, how do we feel about Bitcoin being at a 3-year high? And in market cap perspective, it's at an all-time high. I'd say we feel pretty darn good about it. Personally owning Bitcoin, and then also just for Splinterlands. Obviously, the majority of the players are in the crypto space. They own cryptocurrency. So when crypto prices are doing well, our player base has more money to spend, and that's not just with us buying packs, but it's more money to spend buying cards in the market from existing players and things like that. So it's good all around when Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are doing well. We're really looking forward to 2021 as being a fantastic year for cryptocurrencies, just based on the typical market cycles, and that should only be good things for Splinterlands and anybody who's already participating in the game before then.
So I do spot checks on the market, and I'll go look and be like, all right, how many beta rares are there of this type, and how many alpha rares are there, and how many untamed rares, and try to figure out like, it's deceptive to look at the market and be like, well, how many cards are for sale? Because the way that you have to squish the cards together, just because there's 50 cards doesn't actually mean that there's one max. And so what in all the years of doing this, to me, it looks like the market is thin. I mean, there's not a lot of cards, from the llama to Cornelius to like even some of the like untamed commons. There's like 400 of them on the market, which is from the total, that might be one card, but there's going to be a couple that have extra BCX. So there's not a lot that's on the market right now. And if I haven't seen a ton of like Bitcoin payments come through, but I do see a bunch of the altcoins come through. So if the altcoins catch a bid and there's any kind of alt season, then that would be really exciting to me. One, it would mean that everybody here is doing remarkably well, or at least compared to where they were, like a year ago. But I think I have a hard time believing it wouldn't find its way into card packs and purchasing cards from each other or land or whatever else. I mean, if you guys are all doing well and you need some kind of entertainment, there's not too many choices in the blockchain world of where to go. So thanks for the softball question, Neil. But that thing, it should be great. Maybe
you
we
want
can
to talk about the farm? Don't Stop Me Now is asking about the farm and mythical things you've been doing on Hive Engine. Do you want to talk about those real quick?
Not much here. That they're completely separate from this. Hive Engine has different ownership, different people, different coders, different goals, and it's completely separate from Splinterlands. The ways that I've tried to connect them are, one, we accept dark energy crystals over there, and that's just sort of like a like tip of the hat to Splinterlands and the fact that I do work here and want this place to do well. And the other thing is that it's sort of like a playground for me that, like, I would much rather get something wrong in like a brand new little mining game with like really low stakes and not tons of people. And if I screw something up, I would much rather that happen at like a Hive Engine brand new thought project than screw something up for Splinterlands that's like, a multi-million-dollar enterprise here. So I look at it as a sandbox for me to look at some of the other contracts that we have and see what makes sense, see what players like. It seems like on this last one, I can find out some things that players don't like. And all of that is just really good experience for me as a game designer in a production environment to then turn around and get back to Splinterlands and be like, all right, here's what I did over there. I tried these 3 or 4 things. This was really cool. They didn't like this. So as we discussed, let's implement this set of stuff. And hopefully by the time that we implement here, I've been able to go test all this stuff out in, a bunch of different sandboxes, and only the cream of the crop gets into Splinterlands, so that this is the best possible environment. Does that feel fair to you, Matt? Have I misspoken anywhere?
Yeah, no, that's right. And I also, there was an earlier question that I'm not involved in that stuff anymore, just basically because I focus 100% on Splinterlands. I'm just like nonstop, 24/7 almost, just like I focus on Splinterland stuff. And, but I do agree that in general, like other things that aggroed and other people experiment with in Hive Engine and also other platforms. I mean, most of the things we do in Splinterlands are just, ideas taken from other games, other projects, look at things that work well, look at things that people like, see how we can improve on them. So that it all falls under that category. Like the more experimentation and different things that are happening, especially within the Hive blockchain ecosystem that we're a part of, like the better it's going to be for us, for all of us in the long run. Jarvie just got here, so we got to start over.
I want to get into. I want to talk about Digicon. Maybe we can unmute Carrie and she can hop in here. And
do you need me to do that?
Maybe it's the Carrie Robert. Yeah, the Carrie Allen. Yeah, you need.
She's unmuted.
All right, Carrie, I don't know if you have a mic, but first off, don't say anything atrocious in case you don't know that you're now free. And otherwise, why don't you tell us a little something about Digicon, why it got delayed, and what's about to happen now?
All right, so Digicon is a super amazing, wonderful virtual convention hall space that we've been working on for a couple of months with GamerJive. That's where it's being hosted. It's been delayed because they're working on stuff. It's a brand new thing with the COVID and everything happening. This group, actually, they used to do in real life conventions, and they started bringing it online so they could offer that when everybody was stuck not doing things. So they've just been having, getting things updated. We have big plans for them. When we first started working with them, it was a very basic thing that they could offer. And even in the last month, they have been able to implement tons and tons of new things, which is why we didn't want to do it last month. There were so many things that they were on the cusp of implementing that we just weren't ready to start. And now they do have those things. So we decided we wanted to go ahead and just do a kind of a soft opening. We're not charging people for the space this time because it's 8 days away at this point. So instead of having the full month of being able to go into the space, hang out, play games, hold conferences for your own thing at your booths, we're just focusing on this main event the first time. So currently, Digicon is locked without the code, and it will open forever on Saturday. That's next Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. And from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., we'll have basic meet and greets. We'll do a few games where we do giveaways, and we're really going to focus on NFT auctions. This will be art. This will be game assets from all sorts of different blockchain games and things like that. These will be super rare things that may not be available to purchase anywhere else right now. So your only chance to get some of these items is going to be at our Digicon auction house. Yeah, it's super fun. I've been in there the last few days a lot because I'm getting people getting things set up and getting their booths set up. So it basically looks like a normal convention hall. You walk in, and there's booths around, and you have a 3D avatar that you can change what you look like. You can carry different things around. You can emote, dance, laugh, all sorts of fun things, play games. And it's really totally like just going into a convention hall, like in the good old days when you walk in and you hear people chatting and everyone's talking and it's like a big party. So yeah, the last few days I've been going to a lot of little events in different spaces over at GamerJibe, and all the people I've been talking to about the communities, they're really excited. So we're partnering up and inviting people from other games, from other blockchains, from other projects, and we're inviting them to bring their community so all of us can play in one place together, learn about new games, get, just meet people, find other developers to work on things, all this fun stuff. So yeah, first one, it's next Saturday. We're jumping right in. We're going to do it. We think it's going to be a lot of fun. Interest is really high. Everyone's super excited, even though it's a week away. They're like, let's do this. We're excited. This is so fun. And everyone I bring into the environment, they're like, oh my God, this is better than any of those other ones. So, and that is again the reason we chose GamerJibe. It's much different than a lot of the virtual spaces. Some of them are in first person, and that's really cool. The other plus, the reason I chose this is because I have crap internet, and it works really well for me still. It's currently only browser based, so I'm very sorry for people on mobile. They are working on a fix for that, but at this time, browser based. I have talked to a few people who have used tablets and devices and have been able to get in and navigate, so that does work for them, I guess. But yeah, so currently, I don't know if they have VR headsets. I will have to ask, but I think that would be something that's on their to-do list, because it's really, really very much set up for that. And that's why we've been working with the devs on like the environment of how you can it's very much VR, like headset wise, like how you can navigate, look around, you can see outside underneath the things. So I think that's their eventual goal. And again, why I'm really liking working with them. Like there's so many new things and so many ideas, and when I have an idea, I suggest it to them, and then they try to work on it. And so, yeah, we're just soft coming into this. The 2-hour event this time is going to be hopefully fun. We'll literally run around, have races with your avatars, things like that. So if you're ready to do something exciting and fun, it's free to enter. And if you have a game or project, if you know somebody that has a game or a project or an NFT or an asset or some piece of art, or maybe you are personally holding something that's super rare and valuable and you want to just get some money off of it, go ahead, reach out. You can email me, Carrie at splinterlands.com, or send me a message on Discord. I like that too. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. So I know folks want to see us market. Just giant dollars into ad spending doesn't seem to work well with the size of the market that we have. And so doing partnerships and putting together events seems like a stronger play. And so here we are experimenting and seeing how we can drive user adoption. And hopefully we're just in a fantastic position to ride this wave, that if there really is a bull market that's here and it really does impact all these altcoins and people flock into this space, being the #1 blockchain game out there should really help us ride that wave. And there's a lot of ifs to that, but
Matt and I are a nice balance of me being as rosy and optimistic as possible, thinking everything will moon and everything will be amazing every year, no matter what. And Matt being a little bit more realistic of, there can be some very tough times ahead and we have to plan for these and think through them. The two of us are a really nice combination in terms of getting a good balance of hoping for the best, planning for the worst, and driving as we go. So, as per normal, I'm stoked to see the players welcome new faces. There have been a bunch of new faces. I'm seeing new currencies that people are paying in. So it's fun to watch these partnerships start coming alive more. It's great to see really creative work done by the team, from the map to Digicon to the way that we're coding new parts of these projects. The folks that help manage socials. I mean, the whole thing. I'm just really proud of this team and proud of the way that folks are operating and proud of this community. I can't emphasize enough what an honor it is and what a privilege it is to be able to tell people with a straight face and some enthusiasm, come visit our community. It's literally one of the best in all of crypto. And, that's made possible by a set of passionate, somewhat quirky, but amazing group of dedicated fans of the game and people that are willing to help new folks entering crypto. So thanks for your spirit and thanks for your, the welcome that you provide new people. So I'm looking forward. We're going to push the next one back for 2 weeks. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be happy to have another one of these calls. It'll be at 3 p.m. And, we have the land sale going live. We have the tons of work in development, and I'm just excited. There's just a lot going on. It's kind of hard to keep up with all of it, but so it goes, and so we grow. And I'm just appreciative for the folks that carry the Splinterlands flag with them and talk about the game and spread the community. So thank you to the folks that are here and to the folks that play Splinterlands. Anything to add, Matt?
No, I couldn't say it better. We have a really exciting year coming up, not just from Splinterlands, but we talked about the crypto and Bitcoin environment and just all this stuff. We're hoping it's a perfect storm for Splinterlands in addition to a perfect storm for Bitcoin and crypto.
Should be awesome. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you around Discord for sure, but we'll see you at the next AMA in 2 weeks. And, have a wonderful day. Enjoy the holidays, and best of luck out there as you try to smash your opponents. Talk to you soon. Bye.